Recording has started. Muting everybody. Unmuting you.
I'm muted by the host. All right, gentlemen, good morning. Daf Chaf Amud Aleph. Shabbos, 2 lines from the top. We just finished the Mishnah that we did yesterday. So the Mishnah dealt, if you just look back at it, in terms of different things. We started off with the line, actually, we've been discussing the last couple of blocks about roasting an egg or some sort of meat prior to Shabbos. If you leave on the fire, if it has to be mostly roasted before. So the Gemara asks, let's see, the comma, and how much does it have to say? It has to be cooked before. The food has to be cooked prior to Shabbos. So how much has to be cooked? Right, rare, well done. Right, the comma. So Amar Belzar, Amar Rav. So 2 lines on the top says Belzar, Amar Rav. Kadei sheyetzulu mibayim, b'kamachal ben drusai. In order that she go ahead and be cooked like the food of drusai. Machal ben drusai is a term basically used. It was named after drusai was a listim, as Rashi explains. He was a thief, and basically thieves are always on the run, and therefore he never fully cooked his food. He basically cooked it a third, some say half, right? But for the most part, as Rashi says, bishula shlish, she would cook it a third. There's another issue, an isser of a nachri to go ahead and cook for a Jew. However, if it's already cooked to the level of machal ben drusai, if it's already cooked a third, and then a nachri goes ahead and cooks it further, then there's no more isser of bishul nachri, because then it was already considered to be cooked already at 1/3 by the Jew. And Tanya, we learn in Brisa, Chananya Eimer Kol Shul Kamachal Ben Drusai Mutter LaShayf Agam.
I have a question.
Okay.
Wait, I have a question. Does that mean that you're also not chayav for the malacha bishul until it's cooked Michael Ben Drusai? Is it still considered raw here?
Right,
okay.
It's considered raw. And
have you violated the isser of bishul?
No.
As soon as you put it on, or until
put it on, right?
Once it gets to Michael Ben Drusai, then you're chayav.
So you're not allowed to put it on. That's an isser d'Rabbanan, right? You can't put it on because you put food on a fire, then it will come to cook. The actual cooking process is the malacha you're chayav for, right? If you put raw food over a fire on Shabbos and then you quickly pull it off, you didn't violate a malacha. Right, you violated an isser d'Rabbanan of you're not allowed to go ahead and place food on an open fire, but you didn't violate the malacha. The malacha is cooking of food when it's 1/3. So let's go on. So also within Tanya Chananya Koshu, and also we say mutal ashaysa gavekira v'api shein gruva ktuma. Something that was cooked kamachal ben drusai, and it was already cooked 1/3. Then you're allowed to go ahead and we'll discuss these later on. A kira, right? A kira is like a small stove that you go ahead and you put on, even though it's not grufa ktuma, which we'll learn about in terms of that the coals were basically shoveled out and covered, right, and smoldered a little bit. So those cases, even though normally, if those two are done, if it's either grufa or ktuma, right, then you can go ahead and put food on. So however, once it's cooked already a third, then you can put it on, even though it's not garufa katan. So now the next case we said you can't go ahead and put bread until before Shabbos, but it has to already crust over before Shabbos in order for it to be quote unquote baked, and then there's no isser of baking on Shabbos. So we say until it hardens, until it crusts. So we said, so the Mishnah says, in order its face shall be crusted over me by Yaim, and Rabbi Yezer Aimer, in order the bottom will crust over. So what does that mean, the bottom versus the face? What's going on here? So what does it mean the bottom? Hey, the gabi tanner, is it the part that's attached to the tanner? No, these have to basically take the dough and slap it on the side of the tanner and have it go ahead and bake there. Or maybe it means tachta means the part that's facing the fire. Maybe it means that the part that's over the fire and then it's crusted is the part facing the fire, which is not as baked as the other, because it will take longer for it to bake the part that's against the wall. So Tashmakim, listen, Rabbi Elazar Omer, Kadesh Shekrum Paneh HaMedubakin B'Taner. In order that the mouth should be crusted over, the part that is attached to the side of the oven. So then we said Mishal Pesach, one is also allowed to go ahead and basically roast his Korban Pesach over, even though it's not completely cooked before Shabbos. So why is that? So my time. So Mishum Debei Chabur is using it because the whole reason is because we're worried that a person's going to go ahead and he's going to play with the fire or he's going to use the fire and try and kindle it and move it around to create more of a fire to help it cook. So, but since the Korban Pesach is eaten in a group, it's in a group setting, so therefore, since it's a chabura, it's a group of people, there will be zaris. They'll be careful not to do it because if a person forgets and is about to do it, then he'll be reminded by others who are present. Halach, where wasn't that law? You wouldn't be able to do it. There wasn't a group. Amar Gadia, Bein Loy Sharik, Shapidami. We said earlier that what do you mean, right? When we have the Korban Pesach is kid meat, right? Is a young goat, right? Or young lamb. So we said earlier that I understand if it's something which is a kid, right? The young goat meat, then it's no problem. Why? Because by opening up and increasing the heat from the wind or whatever it is, it will affect the way it's being prepared. So a person's not going to go ahead and open it up in order to go ahead and to play with the fire because he doesn't want to go ahead and ruin the cooking. So why over here do you have to say that, because he's eating the chabura, that's the reason why you do it, because he won't come to do it. He won't come to play with the fire anyways, because if he goes ahead and opens it up, it will cause damage to the cooked meat. So Gemara says, no. Hasam mintach, hachalei mintach. Over there in the case was cut meat. Cut meat, it was smaller pieces, so therefore opening it up and playing with the fire would have an adverse effect on the meat. However, over here, when it's the large animal, it's not cut up, so therefore opening up, basically will not cause any sort of damage or effect on the cooked Korban Pesach, and therefore one, if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for other people around, one would go ahead and perhaps open up to kindle the fire underneath the Korban Pesach. And we say over there that you're allowed to go ahead and have the fire on the floor of the Beis Hamikdash. Used to warm the floor. The Kohanim, they were not wearing shoes and it got cold, and so on the marble floor. So therefore, they used to go ahead and have basically a fire in one of the lishkos in order to keep the floor heated. So the pasuk says you should not go ahead and kindle a fire in all of your moshvos seichem, right? All of your dwellings, right? Sounds like if they're only in your dwellings and I was by your homes, you're not allowed to go ahead and kindle fire. But it sounds like in the Beis Hamikdash, you would be allowed to kindle a fire. So I'm asking if that's the case. I feel Shabbos nami. So what are you talking about before Shabbos? You're allowed to do it in order to make the fire. If you're allowed to go ahead and make the fire before Shabbos, you should be also allowed to go ahead and make it on Shabbos because there's no Isser at all. Because only the Isser is Los Varesh B'chol Moshva Seichem, and not in the Beis Hamikdash. It's Elam Rav Chizda Kro Ki Asa Lamisha Evaru Padar. No. That pasuk is talking about when it says kindle fire is talking about burning the different limbs and the parts of the animal who do also. That's what's coming to matter. You're allowed to go ahead and burn those. However, when it comes to making regular fire, really it's not. Basically, you're not allowed to make a fire for other purposes, for heating the floor. So therefore, on Erev Shabbos, you can go ahead and make the fire, and even though it's not completely lit before, it's okay. So they may come to change the fire, to kindle it, to do something. So our answer is. The Kohanim is rizim him. Since the Kohanim is rizim him, they're careful. Therefore, they're not going to go ahead and kindle that fire. And therefore, as long as the fire was set before Shabbos, it's okay to leave it on to have it burn on Shabbos. And we say, but however, outside the Beis Hamikdash and the borders, right outside Kadesh Tachos, we say Haor Berubo. In other words, most of it has to go ahead and take light. So my Reuben, what does it mean? What does it mean? It's majority. So I'm a Rav, Roiv Kolech Avlecha, right? Majority, each one of those, all the wood is on fire. And the majority of each one is on fire. And therefore, that's considered to be, now it's lit. In order to, basically, the fire should be lit to the point where a person doesn't have the need to say to somebody else, hey, go bring some wood. We need to put some more wood underneath it. In other words, basically that the bonfire, the fire has already taken place to most of it. And Tana Rav Chia l'Siyua l'Shmuel, and so Rav Chia brought the proof for Shmuel. Kadesh tehei shall have us oila me'alev l'shtei shall have a in other words, that we have another set that said that in order that the flame should come from it, and now you should have to go ahead and bring the flame from somewhere else. In other words, that the fire is self-sufficient, and therefore there is no need for any other wood, or there is no other need to go ahead and kindle the fire. That's when the fire is considered to be well lit before Shabbos, and therefore you can take that medura into Shabbos. And so davar acher. So eight sichidi. Oh, okay. So now eight sichidi. What about one piece of wood? You have a log. So Rav Omar Roiv Ava. Rav says most of its thickness has to be on fire. And some say Beroiv Hakifa. Some say that most of the circumference around the wood is on fire. That is called burnt. Now Rav Papa says Rav Papa Hilkach. Therefore, since you have two opinions, Binan Roiv Ava, Inan Roiv Hakifa. Therefore, since we don't know which one, well, so you need both. You need most of the thickness has to be on fire, and most of the circumference also has to be on fire. And Kitanai Machlos Kanaim. Reb Chia Amar Kadei Sheyishkas Ha'is Memlachas Ha'uma. Reb Chia says it has to be burned to the point where it can no longer be used by a craftsman. In other words, this log is now basically damaged by fire and it's no longer useful. And therefore, that's one extent. In order that the fire should be take on both sides, and therefore that's considered to be fire. And even though there's no exact proof for this, there's a hint in the pasuk. The pasuk says in Yecheskel, it says, "Eshnei ketzoisav achla ha'esh." Right, it says that, and the two ends, right, will be consumed by fire, and it will basically, the fire will, since it's on both sides, it will go into the inside. Can it be used for work? Obviously, it can't be used for work anymore because the fire consumed it from both sides. And then another pasuk says in Yirmiyah, it says "Ve'ach lefanav maveres." It says the ach in front of it, right, was burning, right, in front of him. So what does it mean ha'ach? So my ach, so Amar Rav achvana. So Rav says it's achvana. Well, since you achvana is right, the Rashi says here now arava, right? He says willow, right? Achvana. Ushmol Amar eitzim shenidlaku beachvana. And Shmuel says no, it's like wood that's attached together like brothers, right? They're like attached to one another. So one time we saw it was someone selling. It says, "Hey, anybody want some achvanas?" And we see that he was selling willows. So obviously, willow, right? The achvana is a reference to willows, and it's sort of referring to willows being burnt. And Amar Avuna kanim ein tzrichim roiv abdan. Excuse me, ein tzrichim roiv. So says Ravuna. So kanim, when you talking about reeds, which basically can burn pretty easily. Right, so you don't need a majority of them to be lit. Why? Because if you lit even a minority of it, the fire will take, and there's no concern of kindling because they're very flammable. So something which is very flammable, we're not concerned that you're going to go ahead and play with it on Shabbos. So since the kanim are very flammable, you don't need like wood. You don't need a majority to go ahead and be burning. However, Agdon, if it's tied, the reeds are tied together, then tzrichin roiv, then you need a majority of it, like wood. Why? Because if it's tied together, then there's no room for, basically we'll say there's no room for like the flame to get through. And similarly, we say by garinim, right? By seeds, ain't tzrichin roiv, you don't need a majority. If you have seeds like sort of scattered out, you don't need a majority of the seeds to be on fire. Rather, once some of them take fire, since it's very flammable, it will continue and burn on Shabbos, and you were not concerned that a person might go ahead and kindle that fire. And also, but however, you put it in a basket all together, right? Then you have to raise a tzrichim row. Then, because since they're all together, all combined, maybe there's not room for the flames to go ahead and take hold of the others, and therefore you do not go ahead and need. Therefore, in such a case, you need majority to take fire because the fire might go out. So, Maskav Rav Chizda says Rav Chizda has a kasha. He says, "Adarabba, I understand the opposite. Ivcham istaver, right? The other is logical. From Fakir, kanim ma'avderon so kanim mavadron igdan, right? Loy mavadron, igdan loy mavadron. In other words, if the branches, in other words, they're separate. So then, since they're separate, it might go out, right? Since separate, but if it's all together, then it's not going to go out, right? Because it's not separate from each other. Each one will catch the other one, right? And same thing with garinim. So we say over there by seeds, right? Since they're scattered, or if they're not, they're not together, then the fire might go out. However, but if it's all in one basket, it's one kli, then it won't scatter, and therefore it will take fire. So it should be opposite. And Itamar now we simply learn Amar Rav Kahana says Rav Kahana Konim Sha'agdan Tzrichin Roiv, that reeds that are tied together, they do need a majority. They need of it to catch fire. Lo ogdan, but if it wasn't tied, ain't tzrichen rov. Then if it's not tied together, just next to each other, then you do not need a rov. Ain't tzrichen rov, ain't garinim. However, tzrichen rov. But when it comes to seeds, then you need a rov majority. Nasam bechosel, but if you put it all together in a basket, ain't tzrichen rov. You don't need a majority because then, since they're all together, they will go ahead and burn properly. And Tani Rav Yosef, Arba Maduros ain't tzrichen rov. There are 4 types of maduros, bonfires that do not need majority of it to take burn because they're so flammable. Since they're so flammable, then it will be able to since they're so flammable, they're able to burn. You don't need a majority of it because we know the fire is going to catch. And what are they? Shel zephes, shel gafris, right? A pitch, and like a tar substance, and gafris, sulfur, shel gvina, right? Some have lashon of gvina, right? The gimel here, I saw one, right? Some say another lishna of the rif is right, is not gvina, but is kira, right? So no, it's not necessarily cheese, right? Gvina is cheese, but now they have kira, which is like a wax, which is more flammable. Because I was wondering, like cheese is not so flammable. What do you mean? Cheese on fire, right? So gvina, the shel rav, and also of shel rav, which is a type of grease, right? Grease, right? So then these things are very flammable. Therefore, you don't need a majority of it to take hold prior to Shabbos. If you only light a minority of it, it will burn sufficiently on its own without without a person being concerned that it might go out. And another mitzvah, even of kash, of straw, and what's it called? And gavava, right? Is Rashi says is like something, I guess weeds or something they grow out in the fields. Right over here, the English text is a stubble, like some sort of weeds or something they grow out from the field. And Amar Rabbi Yechon, 18 shel bavel, ain't tzrichen rov. And the wood of bavel, you don't need a rov. You don't need a majority of a rov because it's very flammable. So the Gemara is masking of Yosef Magi. What are we talking about? This wood here, right? Ilema silti. If you're talking about silti over here, which we're going to soon discuss different types of woods and wicks. So that's a piece of wood. So hashtag psila amar ula hamalik tzrichialik berov hayetzi silta mibayit. So I understand when it comes to a wick or a small wick, we say it has to be a majority of the wick that's already consumed. So it's on its own. So you tell me, right? Silti mibayit. Now, can you tell me that it has to be that you don't need ein tzrichen rov? It doesn't make any sense, right? Ella amar Rav Yosef shucha de arza. Rather, we're talking about a part of the cedar tree. I guess we'll soon see that the woolly parts of cedar trees are something that is very flammable, right? Or if it's very flammable, you do not need to go ahead and make it so shukat arza and Rabbi Abba Amar.
Too early.
Type of moss, and everyone moss is very flammable. Therefore, you do not need a majority of it. Therefore, only a little bit is lit on fire. It will burn on itself. Adonai, Now we're unmuted. All right, very good. Fine. Now, I'm still going. All right, very good. Brings out a simcha to the cat.
Anaya Mishnah.
Naya Mishnah, Naya Perek. So now we start the second Perek. Actually, is Mishnayos that those of you daven Ashkenaz should recognize. So, so with what materials is one allowed to go ahead and light?
Some of you recognize.
Right. Saying with what ein madlikin. The others we do not madlik. Those are certain. We'll soon see in the Gemara. We'll explain.
Kigavna, right?
What is it?
Kigavna is the alternative.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. You're talking about that davening in Friday night, right? Yeah, gotcha.
Right. So
yeah, I don't say that.
So we're discussing different types of wicks, right? So if a wick does not light well, then a person might come to basically play with the fire, move some of the oil or the fuel for the wick, and therefore he'll be mavir eish on Shabbos. So therefore, we don't want a person using a wick that does not light well and will be a good wick. So the Mishnah is now going to describe different materials that are no good or no good. So which ones are you allowed to use? Which ones can't you use? So Eman Likin, you can't use lo. So we say here lo belechesh, right? Lo bechayisen, lo bechalach, lo b'sisa idam, lo b'sila samidra, lo b'yorka shalpnei amayim. So it lists 6 ones. Now the Gemara will explain each one. We can go ahead and explain it quickly over here. But lechesh, actually, we'll explain in the Gemara. The Gemara is literally going to go through each and the exact one. But these 6 materials are not good for wicks. All right, they're natural materials. And they're not good for wicks to be used because it doesn't draw the fire. Now, in addition, as we discussed before, when you have the candles, right, you have the fuel, right, and then you have the wick, right, and so the fuel is basically, like in a container, and the wick was coming out. So now, in addition to certain wicks that don't burn well, you also have fuels that don't burn so well, don't burn easily, and therefore a person might come to move or to tilt some of the fuels if it's not feeding the wick properly. So now, in addition to wicks not being permitted, to use on Shabbos, there's also some fuels that should not be used also for Shabbos. V'lo b'zefes, not with pitch. V'lo b'shava, not with wax. V'lo b'shemen kik. V'lo b'shemen streifa, not using shemen kik or shemen streifa. The Gemara will explain. V'lo ba'aliyah, v'lo b'chelav. And now with the fatty tail, or b'chelav, certain other types of fats that are used, those are not proper fuel for the candle. You can use, if it was already cooked fat, this chelav, then you would be able to go ahead and use that for candles. Right? Whether it's mavushal or not, if it's cooked or not, you can always you cannot use it as fuel. It doesn't matter with this chelav, you can't use it for Shabbos. So let's see the Gemara. Now we're going to explain. Remember, we mentioned 6 different materials that were used for wicks, which would be forbidden in others because those don't burn properly. So lechesh shucha de arza. So lechesh is shucha de arza, right? It's the bark of a cedar tree. So Gemara says the bark of a cedar tree, right? So shucha de arza, eitz balmahu, it's regular wood, cedar wood, right? It's cedar wood. So suhu, bamrin saw the ispe. No. There's like a wool. There's like a woolly substance behind the bark, and therefore the wool of cedar tree, as opposed to we'll soon see the wool of a willow tree, but the wool of the cedar tree of the bark is that which we're talking about that should not be used for a wick. And item number 2 was the chaysen. So he's talking about neura shel pishtin, the part of the flax that comes off. I guess when they used to beat it and comb it, it would come off the neura shel pishtin, and it was a part of flax that would come off, and that cannot be used. That doesn't burn properly. So Amar le Abai v'oksi v'haya hachaysen lenuras. There's a passage that says the chaysen will be for the neuras. So how can you define chaysen as neuras if it says, it sounds like it's 2 different things? The chaysen will be for the neuras. Rather, it's referring to, it's not exact same as the flax. Rather, we're talking about flax that really has been dyed, that has been beaten, that has been hit, but not combed out. So therefore, that flax is the flax we're referring to. Now the next one, we're saying v'loy b'cholach. What's the cholach? So Amar Shmuel shalsin lekol nachlu leyama. So he asked all of those, I guess, out in the sea. I mean, it says kulcha shemei. So I guess these people were wearing these certain types of, I guess this material that they were wearing, and he called it. It was called kulcha. It was called kulcha. What does that mean? And Rav Yitzchak Bar Zira Amar gushkra. So he says it's gushkra. It's a type of silk, right? Type of silk. Gushkara, right? Rashi, fine. So it's called the gushkara. So Ravin v'Abai Haviyasvi kami the Ravna Nechemya Achu Deresh Galusa. So one time Ravin and Abai were sitting right before Ravna Nechemya, right, who was the brother Reish Galusa. The Chazi the Havi Lavish Metaska. He saw he was wearing it's like some sort of silks. So Ravin Abai, so Ravin says Abai says, hey, by the way, Hainu Klach Tisnan. This is the klach that we're for this material, this silk material, is that of klach which mentioned in the Mishnah. So Amalei Anan Shira Paranda Karinabe. I call it Shira, like the silk of Paranda. So Meisvei has a kasha Hashiraim Klach Vasigin Chayvitzitzes, right? Hashiraim are silks and kolach. So you see, silks and kolach are 2 different things. How can you be calling kalach silk, if we see that's listed as different materials when it comes to the chiyuv of tzitzis. So the Gemara says tiyufta. So the Gemara answers, you're right. It's a kasha. It's a tiyufta, right? So he says now, and Iboy Seima shira lechud v'shira parnana lechud. Maybe 2 different types of silk. One is one type of silk, and the other is this other is called the parana silk, and therefore maybe 2 different types of silk, and therefore that was can be referencing both when it comes to the mission over there by tzitzis. Fine, 2 dots. V'loy b'silas ha'idon. You can't use b'silas ha'idon. What's that? So we say over there achvina. So just earlier, achvina is referring to a willow, right? Achvina. And Rabin Rabbi because he packs did Tamarisa. So one time they were walking in the valley of Tamarisa, and Chazina Lana Arbasa. So he saw these certain willows that were there, right? And Amarle Rabin Rabbi says Rabin Haino Edon the Tanan. This is the Edon that was referring in our Mishnah, the second in the second paragraph of Shabbos. So Amarle, how he eats Balmahu? What are you talking about? It's not that's willow. That's just wood. So he says kalaf. So he peeled it off. He peeled back some of the willow. So he peeled it off, and then he showed him basically there was wool behind the willow. So therefore, this wool behind the willow should not be used as a wick. And now says midbar. What is that? So you say that's shavra, right? That's shavra, right? Which is over here touched as a nettle in the English, right? Some sort of like grass, weed, whatever that's does not burn well as a wick, and veloy biroka sha'a. So we say over there, right? The Mishnah. So we say biroka shal panei amayim. So what is that referring to? Right? That's the iroka that's on the face of the water. So mahi ilema uchamta de charitzi. If you're telling me that's like the green, right, like the algae that grows like on top of the water. So if you go ahead and try and light it, right, if ruchim evarchim, it's going to fall apart. It's not together. Salam Rav Papa, so Rav Papa, uchmasa de arba. It's the uchmasa de arba. It's not the green that goes on top of the water. Rather, it's like basically the moss that grows at the bottom of underneath a boat, and therefore that type of moss would not be permitted to use as a as a wick. And Tana, we have one brayso that says, we have another brayso that says, in addition to these 6, there's another 2, right? There's wool. You should not use a wool wick, and you should not use one made of hair. All right, so the Tana did on. So why did our Tana, right? Why did he not list it, right? So he says, tzemer michratz charitz, right? And sayar ichruche michrach. Now, those are obviously can't be used because when you burn them, right, they either it shrivels up or it bends over, and therefore it's something that isn't necessarily the head and burns, and therefore since it doesn't go ahead and burn appropriately, so therefore our mission didn't have to go ahead and list it. And then we said now different ones are used.
Yeah. See, the problem with all these different wicks is that because they have a tendency to go out, we're afraid that the person might come and relight the wick, and that's a malacha on Shabbos.
Yes, right. So everybody mentioned these are wicks that it does not burn properly. Correct.
So that's because they don't hold the fire well,
right?
And they have a tendency to go out. We're afraid that the person might come to relight it.
Correct. All right, so let's just finish up 3 lines with Vavaloy Zephes. Now with pitch is Zephes. So Zivsa Shavak. So we say over there, what is the pitch? So Zeves Zivsa and Shava Kriusa. So Zeves is pitch, and Shava is Kriusa is wax. And Tana. So you learn Ad Kan Psul Psilos. So Mekan Veilech Psul Shmanim. So up until now we've been discussing different types of wicks, but now we're talking about the fuel. So everyone says, Pshit, that's obvious. Well, what do you mean? So Shav Yitzchik, no, maybe the wax you think, right? Maybe you say that wax, you can't have a wax wick. So Kamash Lama wasn't talking about the wick, rather it was talking about having the oil, the fuel for the candle to be wax. And Amar Rami Bar Avin says Rami Bar Avin, Itrana Psulasa Dezivsa. So Itran is considered the psul, right? The part that comes out, right, of pitch, right, and shava psulasa dedusha, and wax is basically the psilas, right, the part that comes out of honey. So lamai nafkamina, what's nafkamina? Turn the page. Lamai for sale, right, for business. So a person says, right, he wants to go ahead and buy, some from honey, or some residue from honey, as long as he shows them wax, that's considered to be something which is the psolas of the honey. I will stop here. Everyone should have a wonderful day.
Yasher Kayach.
Everybody.